Hello, and welcome to the Gamer's Closet. I'm your host, Douglas Weed, and today we're going to be talking about Battleship. Battleship is a classic strategy war game from 1967. It is a secret unit deployment game. The edition I have here is from 1984. The game seats 2 players, runs for about 30 minutes of game time, and is rated for ages 8 and up. But let's dig into it a little further, shall we?
Hit. B6. Miss. H8. Hit. C5.
Battleship, a great game of strategy, action, and suspense.
Miss. H6. You sank my battleship.
The game you can play anywhere. Battleship from Milton Bradley.
The game Battleship was originally released as a pencil and paper game sometime prior to World War I. It is in public domain and has had many different printings over the years by many different manufacturers and different names, including going by the name Sink the Swiss Navy. In 1967, Milton Bradley rebranded it and produced it as the game Battleship that we know today. Battleship is a self-contained game that has plastic pegs on a plastic board with plastic ships. Milton Bradley has re-released this game multiple times in multiple variations over the decades to keep it current, also including their talking Battleship from 1989. This is a game where you would plug in your assaults and the computer would read back to you whether it was a hit or a miss. This game was novel because it did allow solo play for the first time on this 2-player game. They also released multiple movie variations from Pirates of the Caribbean and also the 2012 movie that was released. The game is currently owned by Hasbro after their purchase of Milton Bradley, and the game is still currently in print under Hasbro's gaming license. When speaking of Battleship, one other game has to be mentioned. Battle Shots is a drinking game, which is a drinking version of the classic Battleship. Instead of putting pegs into the markers for when you sink a ship, instead you're taking alcohol shots, which is an infamous party game. The game does come with multiple pieces. It comes with 2 carrying cases that hold all of the other pieces of the game. It comes with 10 ships, 5 for each side. It comes with 168 white pegs, 84 red pegs, and a set of instructions. Depending on which edition of the game you have, the pieces are named differently. In the pre-2002 version, the game came with 1 aircraft carrier, 1 battleship, 1 cruiser, 1 destroyer, and 1 submarine. In the post-2002 version, Hasbro renamed the cruiser to a destroyer and renamed the destroyer as a patrol boat. To start this game, players sit facing each other with the lids of their game battle cases raised so that way neither can see the other's ocean grid. Both players secretly place their 5 ships on the ocean grid. To place each ship, please fit it in the peg holes on the ocean grid. Please note that ships can only be put in horizontally or vertically, but never diagonally. Do not place a ship so that way any part of it overlaps letters or numbers on the grid. Players choose who will go first, and then take alternating turns, calling out 1 shot per turn to try to hit each other's ships. On your turn, pick a coordinate on your target grid and call out its location by letter and number. For example, D4, A1, and so on. When you call a shot, your opponent must tell you whether it is a hit or a miss. After you record your hits and misses, your return is over. If you called out a shot location that is not occupied by a ship on your opponent's grid screen, it is a miss. Place a white peg in the corresponding hole on your target grid so that way you won't call this shot again. It is not necessary for players to record each other's misses with white pegs on their ocean grid. If your called out shot location is occupied by a ship on your opponent's ocean grid, it is a hit. Your opponent tells you which ship you hit: destroyer, aircraft carrier, cruiser, and so on. Record this hit by placing a red peg in the corresponding hole on your target grid, while your opponent places a red peg in the corresponding hole of the ship you hit on their ocean grid. Once all the holes in a ship have red pegs, it has been sunk. The ship's owner announces which ship was sunk. Once a ship has been sunk, place a red peg on one of the holes on the top of the target grid to keep track of the number of ships that has been sunk. This option was removed once the Hasbro version of this game came out. Whichever player sinks their opponent's 5 ships first wins the game. Experienced players may also enjoy the salvo game variation, in which you get as many shots on your turn as ships afloat in your fleet. The rules are the same except for the following. You start each turn with a salvo of 5 shots, 1 for each ship in your fleet. You fire them one at a time, and your opponent announces whether the shot is a hit or a miss, marking your hits and misses as you would in the standard game. For each ship sunk, you lose 1 shot in your salvo on your next turn. Continue calling out salvos until one player wins. If you wish to make the salvo game even tougher, there is an advanced option. After a salvo shot is called, the opponent simply announces how many hits were made, but not where or what ships. Since you're not sure what locations actually were hits or misses, you can't record them correctly on your targeting area. So instead, you'd have to put in white pegs only to count your shots. Well, this has been an overview of Battleship. Battleship is a classic strategy game. If you haven't played strategy games before, I would recommend picking Battleship up. It is a great game to play. It's a very easy game to learn. It's a great game to teach your kids. The game is relatively easy to find online. It starts off about $10, goes up from there, but like I said, it just depends on what edition you want. The old pen and paper games versus the Milton Bradley game from '67 or the newer contemporary ones, they're all the same. You can pick up any edition and be able to play it without any problems whatsoever. If you haven't played Battleship before, especially with kids, they should have a very good time with this game. It's very easy to learn. It is a great family game. So if you haven't played Battleship before, I would recommend playing this game. Well, that's it from us here at the Gamer's Closet. We'd like to thank you for checking out our video on Battleship from Milton Bradley. If there's a game that you'd like us to review or go over in the future, please put it in the comments below. Please hit subscribe so that way you can be the first person to check out our future content. And as always, please have a great gaming day.